Okay, in this video I'm just going to take you through interactive lesson number 2, the thing we opened in the last video. Just take you through the lesson elements and talk a little bit about what each of the lesson elements do and about the navigation through the lesson. The first thing you can notice is that on this initial screen at the bottom we actually have these 3 buttons. Now one of the buttons, the previous button, is greyed out. That's because that button is used to navigate to previous lesson elements in the course and in the lesson itself. So we would be able to move back, but obviously because this is the first element we can't move back past the first element. Next button lets us end the lesson at any point. If you're logged in as a student and have a learning record, then PISim will actually remember the last element that you were working on, and when you restart the course, if you continue the course, it will take you to that element. The final button is the next button, and that takes us to the next lesson element in this lesson. This one is a configuration element. The instructor has called it C* configuration and has added some text. So this text describes what is going to happen when you press this button here. This is what's called an action element. It has the 3 navigation buttons, so we can go to the previous element, we can end the lesson. At the moment we can't go to the next lesson element, because we haven't completed the action that this element is for. And the way we do that is we press this action button that sits in the centre. This one really just loads a control configuration. It's an instructor control configuration, so it's available to everybody that is running the course. So the instructor has prepared this, they're giving you some text there, and you just press the button to load the configuration, and you can see that it's loaded a configuration with a control panel, an almost completed control panel, an almost completed control configuration for this continuous stir tank reactor. You should also notice that this lesson window floats on top of the other windows. That's just to make it a little bit easier to find when the screen gets cluttered. You can do the same with the simulation controls, we talked about that before, but they can be put onto a floating window as well. Okay, so we've loaded the configuration, so what's the next thing that's coming up? This is what's called a presentation element, and these things will either produce, they'll either spool presentations to PowerPoint, so they'll automatically start the PowerPoint presentation tool and show you the presentation, or they'll show you these iSpring presentations, which are kind of a PowerPoint derivative, but the way that I've set them up in this course is to actually run as HTML. And the reason I've done that is because in HTML you can use the iSpring features that allow you to add quizzes through the presentation. So I'll click this button now to show the iSpring presentation. This is blowing it up to full screen, so I'll just make that a wee bit smaller. So you can see this is occurring on a web browser that has now disappeared behind the PISim menu, but let's just click on it again. So the web browser is really just showing you the iSpring presentation. What's on this doesn't really matter an awful lot, okay, for the purposes of this video. Obviously if you're doing the course you want to read all these slides. Let's just guess that's direct. It's saying I didn't choose the correct response. So it's telling me I should have used a reverse acting controller. That's fine. Let's just continue through there. All it's doing is describing how to configure another controller on the continuous stir tank reactor. Okay, so we've come to the end of that presentation. It's telling us we can go and have a cup of coffee or whatever, but we might not do that just now. What I will do is close the presentation because this one's finished and we're ready for the next thing to do. Now this thing says we've got a reactor configuration check. I haven't done anything to this at the moment, so let's just check a configuration. So it's telling us that we've correctly connected 9 out of 10 control loops. The purpose of that last lesson element was to get us to add another control loop, but we haven't done it. Okay, so it's telling us that there's 1 control loop missing, and the feedback that has been provided by the instructor says remember that you need to add a control loop between the reactor temperature and the cooling water inlet valve. So we need to have a control loop linking this reactor temperature to the cooling water flow into the reactor. Now I've actually prepared the control configuration, so let's just open that one just now if I can find it. Oh, my configuration, where did I put it? Temp, guest, open. Okay, so this is the reactor configuration, but what I've done is actually added the controller. So let's check our configuration here. Well done, you've correctly connected 10 out of 10 control loops, you've correctly created the control structure, so it's actually checking through all the individual elements on there. You can see that my TC000, which is the controller I've created, although I've set up the structure properly, I haven't actually set all the internal parameters according to what the instructor was looking for. So it's telling me the gain should be set to 10 dimensionless, so let's just change that. Configure, controller, so I want dimensionless gain, I want a gain of 10 in there. What else do I need to do to it? Let's have a look at this, move it over there. To ensure steady state, I need to ensure the bias is set to 90, so I've forgotten to do that, so let's set that to 90. Incorrect parameter value for integral time constant. I can't even remember what this should be, but obviously you're going to have to go back and have a look at the notes. Let's say it was 5 in there. How do we want the controller output to change when the reactor temperature increases? You need to set the direction of control action to reverse. We have in this case set it to direct, so let's change that back to reverse. Click OK, and let's check the configuration again. So we've correctly connected the loops, but let's have a look at that TC000, where is it? We've still got an incorrect parameter value for our integral time constant, but we've fixed all the other errors, so that's great. We don't have to worry too much about that. What we do, if you're doing the lesson, you have to worry about it, but not for any other purposes. Right, we can click the next one. Okay, so what we're doing here is loading another configuration. Can't remember what this one does. Next, show an iSpring presentation. Blah 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 blah. I have no idea what I've got to do in this one. It's again asking us quiz questions. I didn't get the right answer there. Never mind. It's asking me to calculate steady state gain, save the configuration, and I can then move on, integrating responses. So you can see that the lesson is built up of these elements. It takes you through the lesson in particular stages. You've seen most of the elements. You've seen the start element, which describes the learning objectives. You've seen a couple of presentation elements. You've seen the load configuration element, and you've seen the check configuration element as well. There's another element called the performance test element that actually runs a disturbance sequence and then checks that your performance targets like integral squared error or integral time absolute error. It checks those against an instructor designated target and allows you to proceed if you get past that target, if you manage to meet the instructor target. Okay, so that's some of the elements that are involved in lessons. The way you can put these things together as an instructor is huge, infinite essentially. So you can build up a course structure, a quite complex course structure, if that's what you want to do. Okay, thanks for listening.